Hi, this is Vanquished Angel, and welcome to my channel. Today's topic is going to be gaming on Linux and setting up your computer for gaming on Linux. And one of the programs that you're going to need is called W.I.N.E. W.I.N.E is a compatibility layer for Linux that allows Windows games or Windows programs to work on Linux. So I'm sorry, I'm going to fumble a little bit through this because it's kind of actually a moderately complicated process on how I set it up. So this is how I get it to work. And so let's begin with this. And I'll probably go back and forth over a while. I may have to do some editing because there's always something that I've forgotten. So the first thing that I start with is a program called Build Essential. Now, what Build Essential does, it's a package or a program that is for the command line that you use to build the dependencies for other programs. So in this case, we're going to use it for W.I.N.E, but we're also going to use it for another program called Play on Linux, which is a front end for W.I.N.E. So since W.I.N.E doesn't really have a front end, it's just a program to make other programs work. Other front ends are built for it that make it a lot easier to use. And in the case of Play on Linux has what is called like scripts or presets, or has presets for programs that set up W.I.N.E to work, or known settings to work for those programs, which I'll kind of get into more a little bit later. Another thing that it also does, Play on Linux, is that it installs each program in its own folder, which is important, and I'll try to explain that again a little bit more later. For now, we're going to get Build Essential. This program that I have up here is called Synaptic Package Manager. Not all Linux distributions use this one, so you're going to want to know your distribution's package management program and what front end will work for it. In this case, Synaptic Package Manager. So I type in build, and Build Essential comes up. You can also use this to install W.I.N.E. Not all of them will automatically search like this. Mine's set up to W.I.N.E stable, and Play on Linux too. If you install Play on Linux, it will also install W.I.N.E, at least from here. So, but before you do that, you're going to want to install Build Essential from here, or you can run a command in the command line. I have several windows open. We'll just open another one here, and I think it's under Tools. And whatever your command line program is, you can also run sudo apt get install W.I.N.E, and then hit enter, and then enter your password, or Play on Linux, and then hit enter and enter your password, and it'll install. I'm not going to do that right now because I have Synaptic open. I can close that, I guess. And then you hit enter, and it'll ask for the password for each of those. And since I already have mine installed, it says 0 upgraded, 0 newly installed, whatever, because mine's already installed and set up. And so that's how you do that. So, I mean, for installing those, you don't want to do that yet. So what you're going to want to do is use that build dep program that you just installed, and here's the command for that, Build Essential. The command then to build the dependencies for W.I.N.E and Play on Linux is right here. Is this one. Sudo apt get build dep W.I.N.E and Play on Linux. Then you're going to hit enter. And since mine is already done, there's nothing really to be found. You can run it independently for each or both. And so once that is done, now you have all the dependencies, and what that really is going to do is those other little programs that might not get installed through the package manager when you install W.I.N.E, it's going to grab everything that W.I.N.E lists as a dependency, even the development programs and such. And so basically you're going to get all the functionality of W.I.N.E with that. The downside can be is sometimes some of those dependencies can be glitchy, or there's several downsides that might be to that. I haven't found any. I just like to install everything that program might require. Same thing for Play on Linux. So then once that all is installed and set up, you're going to want to open Play on Linux. And in my operating system, it's located under Accessories and then Play on Linux. But in a lot of operating systems, it's actually under Games. So, and I might already have that open. I do. So I already have that open, and these are the games that I already have installed. So one of the things that I'm going to start by doing is going to W.I.N.E versions. Now, I like to install the staging version. And the reason why I like to install the staging version is that has scripts, programs, things installed into it, and settings and additions that the mainstream W.I.N.E does not have. And it's going to take some explaining. So bear with me here. So in other words, this will have like shading or vertex shaders or pixel shaders or something installed into it that mainstream W.I.N.E does not use because it's considered experimental or glitchy and not stable enough to be considered in mainstream. So this allows those to work, and some programs require these, or it'll work better, look better, or run more efficiently with W.I.N.E staging. The backside is it might not run the best either. So you kind of take, take a risk with that. However, it works for almost everything that I have ever used. I've never actually had a problem with using W.I.N.E staging. And so there's the x86 version, and here's the AMD 86 version. And you'll notice that the bold one is the one that I have installed or I'm using. This one is not getting used because I haven't switched over to that one yet. I waited for the video for that one. So now that we have your W.I.N.E versions downloaded through Play on Linux, you're going to use the stable W.I.N.E version in your operating system, but Play on Linux is a front end. And I'm going to kind of explain that a little bit more as I go here. So we're going to install and games. Now, this is whatever games you want to install. These are specific scripts to install everything into W.I.N.E that you would need that is known to work for those games. So like Assassin's Creed, if you click install down here, it's going to install whatever you need. Some of these are glitchy, but it's not too bad. Most of them actually do work. So in my case, I have Neverwinter Nights. I have both 1 and 2 installed, and both are from Good Old Games. So this is not from Good Old Games. This one is from Good Old Games. So you have to have a Good Old Games account, and you're going to have to enter some login information here. There'll be prompts. It's a little complicated, but you can get through it. And then you click Install. And that'll install the program. You can either download it yourself from Good Old Games, or in my experience, it's been a while since I've done this, you actually can log in through this script here and it'll actually grab it for you. So that's kind of how that works. And internet, there's Internet Explorer, whatever you need that for. There's graphics programs, games. The highlighted ones here are experimental or testing. So you'll take the risk that it probably won't work or might not work or be glitchy. I haven't had any issues either. So now that we've got W.I.N.E staging installed, you're definitely probably going to want that. And then you got your game. It'll also install the version of W.I.N.E that works with it and those programs. So another thing that I do is before you start after you start installing games and stuff, there is this. This is the registry editor. This would be the registry editor on Windows. And I already have this opened up to what I need because it's the last place that I was. And then there's also this. Okay, so this gets a little bit confusing, but I keep a copy of the .reg file in my documents folder here on Linux. And so, see if I can find that quick. And that's right here. And the reason why I do that is because I have a setup that works with most games or most programs that I'm going to use, which is this here. And it's just basically a text file. And this actually works with W.I.N.E, and you can import this into any W.I.N.E setting. So this is for me specifically. And these are common things that work with some games. Most games. And you'll notice that this is a file path here in Windows. So it is HKey current user, software, W.I.N.E, and Direct3D right here. And then you'll notice these are the same. So this is the direct draw renderer and OpenGL. So to give an example of kind of what this registry file will do for W.I.N.E is that it says use the direct draw renderer of OpenGL. So to explain what that is, Windows uses DirectX. So you need to translate that call to a program on your Linux system, which in this case is OpenGL. OpenGL is about the smoothest one. So I'm on Ubuntu, but that's essentially what it's doing, is it's automatically telling it. So W.I.N.E, instead of checking with the operating system, let's say I'm using Ubuntu, which I am, W.I.N.E is going to check with the host operating system, what direct draw renderer are you using? And then the operating system will tell it OpenGL. You can save a step by just entering that here. Or you can specify different ones. And I can show you a way of doing that later on. Multi-sampling, that's for your graphics like jagged edges and stuff. Non-power 2 mode repack, that is a setting required for one of the games that I have. You might not even need to mess with that. There might be a game or two that is incompatible with that setting. But most games work with it. And so this is general for all of these here. So all of these here, like some games won't work with GLSL enabled, but most do. So this is just a generic setup is what I'm trying to say, I guess. I'm mumbling through it. This is also another one that's just a generic setup. Most games work with it. So I put that in there. This is my graphics card. It's just something that I enter into this file because right now that's the graphics card I'm using on this computer. This stuff is also specific to your computer and will need to be adapted to your computer specifically. So this is the amount of memory that your graphics card has. Okay. This is basically what graphics card you are using. So you're specifying the driver for Linux. So you're saying use this driver. So if I had an AMD or ATI card, this would be different. But I have NVIDIA. So that's what that's saying, and that DLL file is located within W.I.N.E, and that essentially translates the calls to your graphics card on Windows to your graphics card on Linux. So a Windows program is going to look for that DLL, and essentially it handles it from there. Now these are the hard part. This is like computer techie code stuff here. And so this gets pretty intense. So we're going to close this window. And the benefit is again, it takes processor power to check with your graphics card. So that's why this is entered this way. So if each and every game or each and every call or whatever, it has to check with your your operating system on the location and graphics card and what it is and brand name and make and model and all this other stuff, you can save a step by entering that into the registry file for W.I.N.E, which works similar. I'm going to show you how to find this for every graphics card out there. So one of the codes is you're going to open up a command line and you're going to type in ls PCI N. Now LS stands for list and PCI is PCI cards. So mine is right here. Okay. Yours might be a little different. So this command is super basic. To note that this is my graphics card here. This is the audio card that comes on your graphics card. So that's its call. You'll notice these two numbers are the same. but these last ones are different. But another one that is more in depth that'll help you find it is this one. So add that extra N. I'm going to go down here, and here is mine. So there's that same here. And then the next one, of course, is the audio device right below it. So you'll notice that these numbers and these ones are the same. But it tells you your graphics card, GeForce GTX, so you know that that's what that is. Now you're going to enter that Dword value, and I'm going to show you that up here because it's a little simpler, but it's also listed in here. So here is the one for the graphics card, and we're not worrying about the audio device at the moment. So we're just going to worry about the graphics card, and I'm going to kind of explain that a little bit. So just remember this right here. Okay? So we're going to go back up here because it's easier for me. And right here, because there isn't all that text around, so I can find it easier. So you're going to enter this into there, and I'm going to kind of go more in depth about how to do that in a second, and this. And you'll notice that this right here is this. All right. So now what I do is I'm going to go into LeafPad here. Okay? And basically, I'm going to enter all this information. Since this will be your first time, you're not going to be able to copy, but I am lazy. So essentially, I'm going to enter that into a document in LeafPad, or you can use whatever text editor you want. And I'm going to enter all of this. Like I said, this gets complicated, so I'm going to and ah a little bit. So I'm sorry about that. Anyway, you're going to enter all of that, and then how you're going to get that Dword is you're going to type in Dword, and then these zeros, that semicolon. You're going to copy that exactly, even the quotations, and then you're going to enter this bad boy. Now, the video PCI device ID is your graphics card specific device ID, and I highlighted the wrong one, which is going to be that 1380 right here on the end. So it's going to be the Dword value 1380. And then your PCI vendor, which is your make and or your brand name, is this 10DE. That might change slightly. So like mine is the NVIDIA GeForce GTX. If it's a different NVIDIA graphics card from later, this may or may not change. I don't know. I've never had another NVIDIA card. And you're going to do the same thing for ATI cards. So that's how you do that. This saves a lot of processor power. And then you're going to create this from scratch. And then you're going to save it. And then it's going to ask you what. So I'm going to click cancel here because I don't need it. I save a copy in documents. So you're going to file, save as, documents. Now you're going to notice I already have this one down here. I just named it reg.reg. What you're going to want to save it as is .reg. So anything .reg. Because that'll be recognizable. So these are just a good preset for that there. All right, so we're going to go, do you want, no, I'm not going to save changes. So I already have mine. So once you have that saved, you can use that for any game, and it's a quick reference to set it up. Okay, so we're going to install, and then let's say you installed games Neverwinter Nights. This one from Good Old Games Diamond Edition. I'm not going to install that in front of you right now. That'll be some different tutorial, maybe. That I'll do. But you're going to go, we're going to take this out. So once you have it installed, we're going to go to configure. That's your W.I.N.E versions, that's the name or whatever. I'm going to go to W.I.N.E here. This is all your control for W.I.N.E, and I'm going to go to the registry editor. And you'll notice this looks a lot like that this here. And that's because that's exactly what it is. So, and then this is the file path. And you're going to go Registry, Import Registry File. And you're going to see for some reason it starts there. I don't know why. You're going to click on that and go to the My Documents where you saved it. And there's your reg.reg file or your registry file. And each time you install a game, you're going to automatically load that up. And that, that way it's all good to go. And then if you need to make changes to make the game work, you shouldn't have to change, your memory size or your Dword value or the driver or that. But the rest of this might have to be changed, and I can show you a way to do that. You can either do that in here, actually, modify, or there's another way to do it that's a little bit GUI friendly. So now that you have all that, the GUI friendly way is right here under Display, GLSL support, and this will change that. So after you've loaded that up, you can change a few things from here, whatever you need to. That's going to be game specific, so I can't really go through in there. Another thing you can do is also install components, but the script should do most of that for you. You shouldn't have to worry about it. And so we're going to go back here. All right, we're going to close that out. W.I.N.E versions. I don't know if I covered that yet in this one. I've had to refilm this so many times because I keep making mistakes. So you're going to go to that Tools and Manage W.I.N.E versions. And I might have that window open already, or I might not. W.I.N.E versions manager, I do. Now, in here, you're going to have several W.I.N.E versions. So the script is going to install a W.I.N.E version from when you hit the install and install a game that works with that specific game. Another benefit to using Play on Linux that I didn't explain is that each game is installed in its own specific folder. Now, if you remember before earlier, I said some games work with some settings and some don't. That's why Play on Linux installs in an individual folder or its own instance, separated from any other program you'll install through Play on Linux. And that's important because, like, maybe that GLSL setting doesn't work with one game, but it's needed for another. So instead of changing it each time you start up that game, you can Play on Linux will install it in each folder, so each thing, you can keep it separated. So that reg.reg file will come important for each individual game. So this one is Fate. And you're going to want to do the same thing when you have like Fate. And that's just updating the W.I.N.E version because I haven't played the game in a while, and W.I.N.E has updated since then. And you see we got the same one. So for that one. And so that's important to have them installed separately if they don't work together. So, W.I.N.E version. I use the staging version. So what is the staging version? The staging version is, there's the mainstream W.I.N.E version, and then there's a staging version. Mainstream is tried and tested in what works and is generally compatible with just about everything, with a few tweaks per program you're installing. The staging version goes farther. That was a lot of like user scripts at first. But there is a testing branch now, but that actually tests it to see if it works. This enables a lot of functionality of a lot of programs that you'd have installed or your hardware. So for instance, for NVIDIA, it enables that the pixels and the pixel shaders and things that NVIDIA uses, like the CUDA cores and stuff for your graphics programs. So staging is a lot of times faster and more compatible. I've never had a problem with it, but it is labeled experimental. Excuse me. And some things might not work, or some settings might be glitchy. I've run into that. Can't remember which specific ones. But W.I.N.E staging is eventually faster and is really great for gaming. So you're going to want that in your W.I.N.E version. Now, I had an older W.I.N.E version when I started this tutorial. That's why this one's highlighted, because it's being used. And this one is not, is because I just installed it, downloaded it. But I haven't switched over to it yet. And there's the 64-bit version and the 32-bit version. I do have one of my games, Neverwinter Nights here, is the 64-bit version. So, and I I showed you how to open that. So we're going to go to configure, and there's some arguments. You might need that for this, but you'll figure it out on each one. Sorry, my thing went off. So we're going to switch this to W.I.N.E staging. Do you want to continue the newer version of W.I.N.E staging? And we're going to say yes. And so it's going to do that. And then it'll update that file. So now I've covered W.I.N.E staging that you're going to want for gaming, and I've covered Play on Linux and W.I.N.E. And to build the dependencies, oh, this is very daunting. So we covered the Dword, W.I.N.E staging, and install scripts. So this should be pretty much everything that you would need to get W.I.N.E working, and most Windows games you can do through here. So I advise you to look at it on your own, go through and learn some of the stuff. Each game is specific, so this is just a basic thing that'll help you get gaming on Linux using Windows games. A lot of the games that I will post videos of will require W.I.N.E. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a good day.